When you don't listen and when your spouse is trying to tell you this is how I feel and you automatically, well, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it. Well, what you just done is you just said your feelings are not valuable to me. The way you feel doesn't matter to me, and what you feel doesn't matter. And so I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing because your feelings doesn't matter. But when I value the way you feel and I consider the way you feel, then I may have to make some adjustments in the way I move because I understand that I'm not just in this for me, but I'm in this for we. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters. This is a podcast where we talk about marriage matters.
Yeah.
Because marriage matters. Yeah, it does. So, if you're watching for the very first time, my name is Glenn Coleman, and I'm joined as always by my lovely wife.
Hi, guys. I'm Tanya Coleman.
Yeah, and so first things first, I want to just thank everyone for joining us last Sunday night.
Yeah.
So last Sunday you got a double dose of Marriage Matters. Got a double dose of the Colemans.
Yes.
We did our masterclass on communication last week, and it was so good, so great. They had a lot of participation. Again, thanks to everyone who joined that class,
Yes.
and we're gonna do it again. If you want to, it's still up. If you want to go and watch it, but there's a catch. You gotta join the Marriage Matters Community Facebook group.
Yes.
So if you join the Marriage Matters Community Facebook group, you can go and watch the class. It's still up. Don't know how long we're gonna leave it up there. We'll see.
Yeah.
But you can go and watch it. And if you just want to join a community that's all about the advancement and preservation of marriage, that's the place to be.
Yes.
We're just trying to create a fun and exciting place for married couples or aspiring married couples, people who are aspiring to be married. Just a place for you to get advice and just be around like-minded people.
Yeah. We also have, we actually launched and talked about our upcoming course that we're going to be doing in January. We're going to host space for 10 couples. So we'll have a group of 10 couples that we are working with for 5 weeks to enhance, to build, to actually work through some of the communication issues or errors that are happening in your marriage. So that is coming up in January, and we will talk more about that in the coming weeks and have some advertisement about it.
Okay, yep. That's my bad on the advertising. I didn't even think about adding that to the show, but
I am your helpmate.
Thank you for reminding me. So every week we've been kind of highlighting someone who leaves a review or someone who leaves a comment. And this week our comment comes from K. Jane Art.
Yes, my girl Kelly.
Yeah, so thanks Kelly for commenting and being a part of the Marriage Matters family. And she just left this comment and I thought it was great. She says, "Thank y'all for always being real and vulnerable. I admire that in y'all so much."
Oh, thank you, Kelly.
And I pulled that because that's one of my things. Authenticity is a big deal for me, and I really want to be my most true and authentic self, because when I do that, not only am I living up to my full potential, I'm also I'm at my optimum functioning to be an inspiration and influence for others. I don't know if that made sense. That was
really great.
But yeah, I kind of made it up on the spot.
You did that. Mm-hmm. Must have came out your spirit.
Yeah, came out my shundo.
Yes, sir.
Like E.T. said. What he said? It comes out of my. What did he say?
I forgot
my
what he said.
Shondo, or something like that.
It was hilarious.
Yeah. All right. So one of the things that I always say, we like to give you tips and tricks to help you have a thriving marriage. And I am a technology person. I was talking with a friend at work, and I was like, if there's an app, I want it. If the app can do it, I want it. So I have an app for everything. But What?
I was just thinking if you had an app for me, you use that, huh?
No. There's no one that can, no one or
Push
thing.
your button. Make her be quiet.
There's
Push your
no
button.
one or thing can replace you. I need you in my
Okay,
life.
that's good to
But this app can help me better relate to you
Oh.
and help me be more, just help our relationship be better. So we've been talking about the Anatomy of Marriage app. So this week we're going to switch gears a little bit and we're going to talk about another app that I highly recommend, and this is the Ultimate Intimacy app. And this app was created by Nick and Amy McKinley, and they also have a podcast. So by all means, check them out too. It's called the Ultimate Intimacy Podcast. So maybe that's
Cool.
a trend. You know, the
Your
anatomy
app and
your
your
podcast. So maybe we need a
name.
Marriage Matters app.
That would be cool.
So maybe we'll
Let's
do that.
talk about that.
Anyway, so the Ultimate Intimacy app, it's the product of a Christian couple on a mission. Let me say that again. The product of a Christian couple on a mission to strengthen marriages by making love making unbelievably fun and deepening couples' connection and physical and emotional intimacy.
Wow. Yeah.
So this
Pretty
app
awesome.
is a great app. Emphasis on marriage. This is for married
For
people
married
only.
people.
And it's not one of these. It's very tastefully done. I'll say that. But it is not just about sex, but it's about, I like to say, it's the whole. It's intimacy. It encompasses. It includes sex, but it's not limited to that. It's like the flirting to the foreplay to the actual sex to the. Just it's like it's great.
It covers the span.
It covers
and that's
the
an
span.
area that Christian couples need, because that's
Yeah.
actually an area that a lot of Christian couples struggle in.
Yeah.
When you talk to them privately, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that they are definitely reaching a group of people there, you know, meeting a need there.
Absolutely.
Ministering to a need there
Yeah.
for Christian couples to help to keep our marriages together and
Yeah.
happy and thriving.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So it's the Ultimate Intimacy app, and you can find it in the App Store. And so there's a ton of things, but we're gonna just do the conversation starters. They also have conversation starters in this app, and so it's different topics: romance, family, kind of the same thing as the Anatomy of Marriage app, but some different questions. So I'm gonna ask you this question, and it's a three-part question.
Okay.
So this is the romance
Okay.
topic. So it says, what was your idea of romance in marriage before we were married? Have we lived up to those expectations? And is there anything that you would change? So the first question is, what was your idea of romance in marriage before we were married?
Probably my ideas of marriage before we were married.
The ideas of romance.
Of romance, okay.
In marriage.
In marriage,
Yeah.
before we were married. Probably came a lot from what I saw on television and
Okay.
movies, where there were a lot of flowers being bought. There were a lot of expensive trips taken, you know, and gifts and all of those things. Nice fancy dinners and all of that kind of stuff. Because that's what I saw, you know, as romance, growing up and as a young woman. As far, what was the second question?
Have we lived up to those expectations?
No, and I say no, and I don't, not in a negative
Right,
way.
I got you.
But no, as in the expectation was very romanticized based
wasn't
on
realistic.
fiction. Right, it wasn't realistic.
Okay.
But have we had some of those moments? Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last question is there anything that you would change?
About our romance?
Yeah.
More date nights, and we talk about this often, you know, us making space for more actual dates. I know we do like coffees and things like that a lot, and those are dates and those are great. But I do like a date, you know, where, you know, we get dressed and we
Vic
go
and
out
Anthony's.
and Vic and Anthony's it up. Yes, I love Vic and Anthony's.
Shout out to Vic and Anthony. Hey, Vic and
Yes.
Anthony's, if you're listening, if you want to sponsor this podcast,
Yes, come on.
You know, maybe we could do a podcast from Vic and Anthony's. You know, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, if we did more of those, it is really just making the time and the space
That's
for it in
all
our
it is.
lives. That would be great. But I think also that our perspectives of romance have evolved, and we have been able to be more creative. I think the pandemic definitely helped that. And so I don't have any complaints at all.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. So you want to? I'll give this to you,
Okay.
and you can.
Go to the next question.
Yeah, go to the next question. You can ask me a question.
What are some of the more creative dates we've done together?
Okay, so I think for was that this year for our anniversary? Yeah, this past year for our anniversary.
Year before.
Year before?
Because we were coming out of the pandemic, and so we actually went out this past year.
You're right. So it was 2020.
It was
Yeah, it was
2020. Yeah.
So our anniversary for 2020, we were in the thick of the pandemic.
Right.
And we couldn't go eat, we couldn't travel. So we have like a loft above our garage, little loft area, and that's kind of like my office. And we set that up like a restaurant. We had music. We had the fireplace going on the computer.
Yes. With the sound and everything.
Yeah, so I think that just
and we
that
picked up dinner.
picked up dinner, wine,
Yeah.
everything that we would have gotten.
Right.
We would have gotten at Vic and Anthony.
Right.
Vic and Anthony.
We had music.
Oh, wherever we keep saying Vic and Anthony. That's just like one of our favorite places to eat. And we created that here, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people don't do it, like you said, time, money, whatever. But be creative, be challenged.
Right.
And actually, maybe we need to bring that book. But we have a book, and it's 50 creative date ideas.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of it.
That's from Dave and Ashley Willis, right?
Yeah, I don't think they wrote it, but we got it from them. But sometimes you have to just be creative.
Yeah.
I know. Well, I don't want to just keep belaboring the point, but yeah, I think that was our most creative. And how they say, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
we had to be creative in that moment. I'm trying to think if there's any other. I mean, there's plenty, but that's just the one that came to
sticks
mind.
out to
So
you. Yeah.
anyway,
That was a good night.
Ultimate Intimacy app. Go check it out. You married couples, you won't be disappointed. And sometimes we just need that. We don't want to admit sometimes that we're in a rut, but sometimes we're in a rut, and we just need something
new
to help and guide us. There's nothing wrong with that, to help and guide us, and maybe get some romantic ideas.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so go check that out, the Ultimate Intimacy app. And so, you good?
I am. I'm pushing through.
All right.
Praise the
So
Lord.
let's go.
I'm healed.
So I'm gonna do this so you don't fall asleep on this. So today we're gonna talk about listen, and this kind of came up in our master class, but I want to talk about this because I think it's really important. One of the greatest values, or one of the greatest things I think that people desire in a relationship is, you say it all the time, is to be seen, heard, and valued. And I think a lot of times, that doesn't happen because we just don't know. A lot of times, especially I'll speak for myself, I didn't know how to access that for you, if that makes sense. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I was going to get you to explain what you mean by accessing.
So I don't know how to make that happen for you.
Okay.
It's like I'm doing everything, and I say this a lot. I was trying to love Tanya. I was trying to see Tanya. I was trying to hear Tanya. I was trying to value Tanya the way I wanted to be seen, heard, and valued. But that doesn't necessarily work because she's a different person.
Sure.
And so one way to do that is to become a really good listener. It's like, I think our spouses or our kids or the people that we're dealing with, a lot of times they leave us context clues along the way. They leave us breadcrumbs as to how to meet their needs, but because a lot of times I think we're so preoccupied with ourselves, or we're just so preoccupied with trying to survive and live and pay the bills and get the kids to where they need to be, we miss the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
So this week we want to give you some tips and tricks on how to pay attention to the breadcrumbs.
Yeah. So good. Yeah.
Go ahead. You had
No,
something?
you
That's
did.
it? All right. So one of the things, I was reading a book, and it's by John Maxwell. Is it Maxwell or Maxwell? Maxwell. John Maxwell. And he was saying that, a good listener will treat the person that's talking like they're the most important person in the room.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we can start with listening. It reminds me of the song by her. It's called Focus. And I really like that song, but she's talking about that, she's looking at this person and, she's like, you're on the phone, you're playing the Xbox or whatever the game is, she said, and it's like, I need your attention. And a lot of times it's like we are so distracted, it's hard for us to listen. And it's not always an external thing that we're distracted with.
Sure.
Sometimes we're distracted with our own thoughts, with our own feelings, with our own emotions. And that's why we can't hear what our partner is saying. Because when you are sharing and you're pouring out your heart to me, it's kind of like the Joyce Meyer thing. What about me? What about me? What about the way I feel? What about? And so we get caught up in that vicious cycle of, I need to express myself. I need to express, and nobody's listening.
Right.
So somebody has to stop to break that cycle and take a moment to put aside my emotional baggage, to check my emotional baggage, to put aside what I need, what I want, and provide that for the other person. And that's how this process begins.
Yeah, it's important for us as couples, as spouses, to realize that yes, you are my spouse. You are my partner in this life. But also you're my friend. And how would you listen to or hold space for your closest friends in a moment that they need you to do that? We will show them grace, we will show them compassion, we will not correct them for the sake of saying that they're wrong, but or to chastise them, but in the sense of saying, hey, this is only, this is an experience, you're having a moment, give yourself some grace. We would be very patient with that person, but we struggle sometimes with doing that with our spouses, and we have to realize that this relationship is the most important relationship that we have in this earth. This is where covenant was made, covenant was created between us and God, and so showing our spouses that same grace that we would give to our closest girlfriends or guy friends or what have you, or a person that came to us for counsel or ministry, to be able to show that those same grace and patience to that person is important.
I like the way you said that whole space, because that's what listening really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're right. I think it's funny how, when we are seeing clients, it's so easy for us to do that for our clients. But we have to give our spouses, our partners, the same space, hold that same space for them. It's very, listening is like one of those foundational things that if you don't get that part right, it can be detrimental to your relationships.
Absolutely.
And many times when we say, like, you talk to people and they say stuff like, "Oh, I don't know what's going, I don't know what's wrong," or "I don't know why they're acting that way," or "I don't know what's going on," or like I said earlier, "I don't know what they like," or "I don't know what they want." I don't know. A lot of times when we're saying those type of things, that's a key indicator that many times we're not listening, because like I said, I think people are always leaving us breadcrumbs,
Right.
but because we're so focused on ourselves or something else other than that person, we miss those cues.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I am this
It's
sinus.
okay.
I'm pushing through this sinus, so I am intentionally trying to focus and be here right now.
Okay. I'm
So
sorry. I got you. It's all good. It's all good.
okay.
So it's amazing, it's like how much you like. A great example is like with my kids. It's amazing how much I learn about them when I
you
just listen to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I found out, man, these are some pretty interesting young people and unique and awesome. So a lot of us, we don't know our spouses because it's just because we simply we're not listening. And so when you don't practice listening to your spouse, oftentimes they will find others who will. And in our line of work, we see this so often.
Right.
And that's why a lot of times, and I know this is such a hard statement, but it's a true one. And when things happen, like, emotional people in the emotional affairs, that's always a thing. And the committer of the emotional affair, always the brunt of the fault always falls on them.
Right.
But what I like to ask the other person, and sometimes they don't want to hear this,
Right.
but I'm like, what role did you play
What was your part in it?
in your spouse seeking out that other person? And again, it's like it's human nature to connect. And so again, I want to hold space and allow space for Tanya to connect to me because it's in her innate being to connect. And if she can't connect with me, then she's going to find that other person to connect. And so hopefully, if she's going to an outside source, it's another professional, a counselor or a coach or something like that. But oftentimes, it's just the person that will listen.
Right. It winds up being a coworker, usually of the opposite sex, or someone who you've been in a friend group with, or something like that, and that person is giving you that listening ear and holding space for you, and unintentionally there may be some emotional boundaries that are crossed there, and sometimes other boundaries that are crossed. But you're absolutely right. Not that you're putting that responsibility on your spouse. We all have to manage our own behavior and manage our own emotions. However, as the spouse, you also have to recognize when you are not meeting and being intentional or paying attention and being a student of your spouse to make sure that you are meeting those the needs that they have.
Yeah.
That you're seeking to learn and understand their love language and what they need in relationship from you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I'll say that's why it feels the way it does when your spouse confides in someone else, because in that moment you realize that someone else is holding the place that you
right.
are supposed to be holding.
Right. And if you have not been doing so.
Yeah. But I'm saying that that's why it feels the way. And a lot of people say, well, it's an emotional affair. What's the big deal? It shouldn't be. Sometimes that hurts more.
Right.
Because that's
my space.
That's such an intimate thing when you share, when you're vulnerable. Vulnerability is such a, it's such a connection builder that space should only be reserved for your spouse. So, which also reminds me that, that's why listening to someone shows that you truly value them. And when you really show value to someone, that builds loyalty. More than anything else, I think when you really, and I think we see this a lot, like in leadership, even outside of a marriage, just in whether it's the political arena, whatever that is, it's something about being able to listen, being a great listener, and show people value, that you value their worth, that you value what they bring to the table, you value their abilities and their personality and everything about them that helps to build loyalty
Right.
with that person. And when the other thing that not listening does, when you listen poorly, it invalidates. Is that a word? Invalidate? It invalidates your spouse's feelings.
Sure.
So in other words, it makes them feel like their feelings are not valid.
Right.
And that's something, Tanya says this all the time, your feelings are your feelings. And a lot of times we get so caught up on the right or wrong, it's not about right or wrong. It's saying, I feel this way. And that's the beginning of moving forward.
Right.
Even if the feeling is not what you want to be feeling,
Right.
The root word of emotions is motion. So motions are designed to move you.
Right.
Right. And so the key to that is, first of all, acknowledging them and being honest with yourself about those. But I guess going back to the listening thing, when you don't listen and when your spouse is trying to tell you this is how I feel, and you automatically, well, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it. Well, what you just done is you just said your feelings are not valuable to me. The way you feel doesn't matter to me. And what you feel doesn't matter. And so I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing because your feelings doesn't matter. But when I value the way you feel and I consider the way you feel, then I may have to make some adjustments in the way I move, because I understand that I'm not just in this for me, but I'm in this for we. Amen.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That it's important. Yes, we have to focus on ourselves and we have to take care of ourselves. But when we are in a marriage, we also need to make sure that we are doing exactly what you said, and we are focusing on our spouse as well, and that we are considering them. A lot of times that I hear that a lot from people that he or she didn't even they don't even consider me. It's like I'm like an afterthought. Just considering your spouse and thinking about your spouse and understanding that when they are opening up to you, it's an opportunity to do what you said earlier, to learn from them, to learn more about who they are and who they're becoming, because we say it all the time, we are always changing and growing up, or at least we should be growing and changing and becoming more of who we are intended to be, right? And so the more that we listen to one another, the more that we learn about one another and who we are today versus who we were yesterday.
Yeah, so we want to give you some things to look out, some things that will hinder your listening. And the number one thing I say is ego. The reason why it's hard for us to listen is because we feel a desire to show how smart we are, or how witty we are, or how entertaining we are, or whatever it is. It's we don't allow. We have to make sure that if they're saying this, I gotta say something to match their level, to show that I'm at least on their level or above their level. So you can't listen well when your ego is
And
when you're
trying
stroking.
to process what am I going to say in response.
Yeah. You had something to add to that?
No, I was actually going to read the next one.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. The need to or desire to solve the problem.
Yeah.
A lot of times I find, especially for men, where you want to jump in and solve the problem rather than just listen. Sometimes all we need you to do is just listen, to be there, to be present. If your wife is, ranting and raving about something that happened at work or something with the kids, she may not be asking you to give her a solution or offer her a suggestion. Maybe she just wants to get it off of her chest. If she's upset about something, had a hard day, encountered, a loved one that she's struggling with, sometimes she just wants you to say, babe, I understand. I'm here for you. I love you. Give her a hug and a kiss, and that's it. And not say, well, you need to do and you shouldn't feel.
I'll just say something. Well, I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yes, absolutely.
And one of the greatest examples of this is there's this video, you can look it up on YouTube. It's called The Nail. And it's this husband and wife, and she's like, I need to talk to you. She's like, lately I've just been feeling so much pressure in my head, and it's like this sharp pain that's in my head, and it pans out and it shows she has a nail in her forehead. And the husband's like, well, you have a nail. And she's like, don't do it. You always do that. You wanna fix it. He's like, well, I'm just saying, if we just take the nail out, then
Right.
the pain will probably go away. She's like, it's not about the nail. It's about how I'm feeling. But he's just like,
It's so obvious
it's
to
the
him.
nail. And so, but that's the temptation but again, you get so fixated on the nail, and be grateful that you can see the nail.
Right.
But here's what, and some of our friends, Mark and Melissa, they talk about this all the time. Mark and Melissa Dunmois, about it's our jobs as counselors, our jobs as coaches, is not to solve people's problems, but to help guide them to their own solutions.
Right.
So in that instance, it's what we want to do is help them to see the nail. And sometimes if you just let a person talk long enough,
Right. They'll get to it.
they'll get to it themselves. But again, the tendency for us is to fix the problem when they don't want us to fix the problem. They want us just to listen, to hold space, to be a story catcher for them. And so sometimes, you could say that when someone or your spouse tells you something, you can say, okay, do you need me to listen to you? Do you need me to give you advice, or do you need me to fix it? What are you looking for? And if they say, I just need you to listen, okay, just sit there and listen. And I'll say that the last thing is, and this is something maybe for me that I struggle with, is the fear of silence or not having a response. Sometimes we feel like we always have to have a response. One of my favorite stories, I always say, here I go again. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is when the Pharisees or Sadducees, one of them, they brought the woman to Jesus who was caught in adultery, and it's like, what are you going to do about it, Jesus? And the Bible says that Jesus just bent down, started writing in the dirt, and it's like he didn't have a response in that moment, and he just waited until he had a response, and he gave it. But my point is, don't be afraid of the silence, and I know that can be uncomfortable sometimes when somebody's just telling you something and you just sit there. And just, and so it's like somebody says something, but there's so much power in silence.
There's power in silence, yes.
There's power in silence.
Yes.
So don't be afraid of the silence. Don't always think you have to have a response, So those are some hindrances to listening. So some things that promote listening or good listening is, we said it already, but I'm going to mention it again, is focus. Is you have to listen with blinders on. When you're listening, nothing else should matter in that moment. The phone calls, if it's important, they'll leave a message. A lot of times, one of the things that I've been trying to practice, which nowadays is kind of hard, is when we are talking, or when Tanya and I are maybe having coffee, or we're at the table and we're talking, I try to take my phone and flip it over as a sign to her, and a reminder to me that I'm supposed to be focused on her and not on a text or my notifications from Instagram or whatever it is. So it's very important that you have to treat them like they are the only person in the room.
Yeah. When you said that, you had said that same thing earlier about treating people like they're the only person in the room, I was thinking about when I was reading a book on not Malcolm X, I'm sorry, Nelson Mandela, how people said that whenever they went to talk to him, where it was an interview or just held to have a conversation, I think I've even heard Oprah say that he treated you like you were the most important person in the world. Like all of his focus and attention was on you. And to think of someone who, was such a great leader, but he made other people feel important.
Yeah, and that's really good. I was thinking about the movie that they made, Invictus.
Yes.
And I forgot the guy's name, but he was he was like the captain of the national rugby team. And I remember when he went to the palace or whatever they call it to meet with Nelson Mandela, and it's like Nelson Mandela knew everything about him. Yeah. And he was like, you know all this about me, and he made him feel so important that it influenced that guy to become a great leader and ultimately lead their national rugby team to a national championship, which caused a whole nation to turn, all because one guy took interest. And that kind of links us to our next point. One of the things that promotes good listening is be impressed and be interested.
Yes.
Not impressed, not impressive and interesting.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah.
So a lot of times the temptation is I want to be impressive.
Right.
I want to be interesting, but no, I want to be impressed and be interested in this person.
Right.
And so when people are talking, it's like, and you don't want to gaslight people, but you want to be genuinely impressed. Like, wow, man, that is awesome. You really did that. And I know for me, a lot of times, like when we're story swapping, and somebody's talking about a time when they, whatever. I'm trying to think of a time when I whatever. So after they finish telling their story, then I can tell my story.
Right. You're trying to build connection, and that's a way that we try to build connection.
Right.
Is to have a similar
But
story.
A better way to build connection is to simply be impressed and interested in what they're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. So the next thing is listen to learn, not to reply. So listen to learn, not to reply. There's nothing more frustrating than when you're trying to teach a person something. And when they come to you to show them something.
Your whole mannerism changed.
And then you start showing them and they start correcting you. And I'm like,
right.
So it's like, all right. And at that point, I tend to shut down. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to let them.
You don't want to hear what I have to say.
I don't let them. Yeah. So it's like I'm listening to learn. And that's what I said earlier. A lot of times we miss that because we're trying to impress, we're trying to show, and you're missing all the context clues. You're missing all of the breadcrumbs. And then it's like, it's like, and I went back and started watching some old episodes of Martin. And I know, it's like, it's just nostalgic, I used to love Martin. Anyway.
I didn't say anything.
But there was one of the first episodes, and it was like their anniversary. It was something like I don't even know if it was a 1 year anniversary. It was like the first year anniversary of the first time they said "I love you" or something like that. And so he waited to the last minute to go and get something. So he ran to this lingerie store, and that's what they showed you. But when we brought her the gift, she was like, "Martin, first of all, you didn't buy it. This is last minute and you didn't, and it was in the lingerie store box, but when she opened it, it was a footstool." And earlier in the episode, she was talking about how, this footstool, and how her grandmother had this footstool, and he got the context clues. Oh, you got what I'm saying? Yeah. And a lot of times, those are the gifts. And even though that footstool may not have been the most expensive gift or the fanciest gift, but that meant so much. And I know this is fictional, but it works the same way in life. When we listen to learn and not to respond. Yeah. So, real quick, how to listen. I'm going to give you these couple little points here, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here and let you get some more tea or something. You're so great. Thank you for doing this. The people appreciate. Don't y'all appreciate Tanya Coleman? Look, she's just toughing it out.
You're so welcome. It's
Look
my
at
honor.
her. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how to listen? First, of course, look. And I know this goes without saying, but you got to say it. Look at the person speaking.
You would think it goes without saying, but so often
this is
like holding the phone.
so awkward now.
Right.
It feels weird when you look at, I remember
especially eyeball to eyeball.
There was this person that we knew. I don't know if you remember this person. And when you would talk to them, they would just stand there and just and you would finish talking and he would just and he'd be doing that. And you're like, I get so freaked out about it, but he was genuinely interested in what I was saying, but it's so uncommon that it's weird.
It feels weird. Yeah.
So look at the person speaking. Number 2, don't interrupt. Just let them talk. Let them talk. And I've been practicing, like I said, the silence thing. So after they finish talking, I may just wait a couple, and then they don't say anything. Okay, then I'll go. Make understanding the goal.
Yes.
So the goal of this is I want to truly understand. I didn't say agree.
Right.
I said understand. I want empathy. I want to be able to see it from their point of view.
Right. And how do you understand? When you truly understand, how do you get to understanding?
Listening
and inquiry.
Okay, yeah, and I'm
asking. Am I moving too far ahead? Okay.
That's okay. That's all right. You're good. So make understanding to go. So here's another good one. Determine what they need at the moment. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we're looking ahead. But what do you need at the moment? Right. Mm-hmm. I can remember. Well, I'm not gonna share that story. I'll save it for another time. But sometimes in the moment, they need to be listened to, or in the moment they just need. You know what? I know it's just gonna be okay. Mm-hmm. Or they may need you to do something. They may need you to say something. They may need you to make a phone call. Whatever it is they need in the moment. Mm-hmm. That's being a good listener. So determine what that is. Here's the other one: is check your emotions. Mm-hmm. So I said this earlier, but so many times when we're listening, all of our emotions start coming out. Mm-hmm. And we get that what about me mentality, mm-hmm. but that's not the time. So you have to learn how to, nope, not right now. This is not my time. I'm gonna let my spouse fully get out all of their thoughts. Mm-hmm. The other thing is no judgment. Mm-hmm. No judgment. Well, this one here, the word says, I know, and that's true. Right. The word does says that. The word does say that. But is it that right there? Is that where you want to interject? Right. And it goes back to the one we said earlier. Determine what they need in the moment. Mm-hmm. Okay. So no judgment. I'm not gonna say you shouldn't have done that. I'm not gonna And here's another thing. A lot of times it's easy for us to say what we wouldn't have done in a situation. Mm-hmm. That's easy. But when you're in the situation, right. You can't say what you would or would not do. The other thing is, maybe sum up, summarize what they're saying. Mm-hmm. Like once they stop and they've said it.
Use a reflection.
So what you're saying, what I hear you saying is this. Mm-hmm. And so sum it up. And here you go. Ask clarifying questions. Yes. If you don't fully understand, so you mean this, or is this how you, so asking them so tell me more about when you said this. Mm-hmm. Tell me, can you talk a little bit more about that? Right. And the last thing is always just making listening a priority. Yeah. Because again, this is one of those things that I think we don't do. Mm-hmm. We're not taught how to do that. So just making it a priority. Mm-hmm. So in closing, you had anything to add to any of those?
No, those are all really great. I think if you worked on 3 of those in your listening and your communication, you would be doing stellar.
Yeah. And remember, this doesn't happen overnight.
No.
This is a thing, but you have to start. If you start, like Tanya said, take 3 of them, mm-hmm. and just practice. Just practice. The next time you talk to your spouse, mm-hmm. try not to say anything. Mm-hmm. And
not being an annoyance, right? And not saying anything.
Of course. Thank you for clarifying. I'm not talking about
purpose of I'm just not gonna say nothing, but you're not saying anything because you want to really understand, and you're really truly listening. Yeah.
And watch the reaction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be it'll be great. So what listening says is, I hear you, I see you, and I'm with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, what do most people want? They want to be seen, heard. And what's the other one you said? Valued,
yes. Thank you. I forgot what I said because my sinuses got me not.
Thank you so much for doing the podcast. I know you're kind of not feeling 100%. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Always.
So that's all we got for you this week. Remember, follow us, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, subscribe, like. Make sure you're listening to the podcast. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, on Google Play. Also, don't forget, go join the Marriage Matters community Facebook group.
Yes,
go check that out.
That is for married couples.
For married couples.
People.
Yeah. Or if you about to get married, or no, it's for married people. So, yeah.
This is for people who are not married or married. That is for married couples.
Okay, gotcha. Married couples. You heard it. She said what she said. All right. So, with that being said, this is Glenn and Tanya Coleman reminding you that
Your marriage matters.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.